This meeting is called to order. Please rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. First order of business is public comment. We have had no one sign up to deliver public comment tonight, so we'll move right into the report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please, with regard to the minutes of our last meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, August 24th, 2022.
Second, Heather.
Heather? Yes, please, go ahead, John.
So, just kind of looking at the minutes, I think one of the things that there's some loose ends in the minutes right now, and so what I would like to recommend is that we vote not, or you all vote not to approve the minutes. We can give the feedback to Elaine to be able to make some corrections with it, and then at the next meeting, we'll come back and we'll approve the minutes at the next meeting. I think that'll be a little bit more
Yes.
time-wise. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep, most definitely. I'm happy to give my notes. I have a lot in there already marked up, so.
Okay.
All in favor? We're voting on approving the minutes, so the
But-
question is.
Wait, sorry, no,
All
no.
in favor?
Sorry, Joe.
Opposed?
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't think I've
Okay,
ever
that's
done
6-0.
that in
6-0.
my
That's
history of 4
06.
years on the
Yeah.
board.
So we will readdress these at our next meeting.
Yes. Great.
Okay.
And Elaine, we'll give you some copies of people's feedback so that we can make those changes within the minutes.
Okay, that brings us to the report of the chair. You're going to talk a little bit in your report, John, about the setting up of the town officials meeting, but the next one is next Wednesday, September 14th. It's at the superintendent's office. It's at 8:30 a.m. And we'd like to keep the number of board members there at 3 or less, just so we don't have a quorum issue. So, as I've done in the past, reach out to me if you want to attend that and let me know.
And there'll be a virtual and in-person option.
Yeah, there'll also be a Zoom option
Okay.
if you can't make the drive. Okay, MSMA Fall Conference, second reminder. There's, as part of this conference, there's something called the Delegate Assembly, and each school board is allowed to send one delegate to the Delegate Assembly. It's a separate portion of the MSA meeting where the delegates vote on the resolutions that the MSMA has come up with for the year. There's a few where there's some like ongoing resolutions about encouraging lawmakers to ensure that funding is available for such and so, things of that nature. And the delegates will, at the Delegate Assembly, will vote on those resolutions.
Is that in person this year?
It is in person this year.
Everything is in person this year,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, although I believe they're still going to make the presentations available for some period of time online after the meeting.
The archive, right?
But the
Yeah.
delegation is that all happens in person
Yes.
this time? Okay,
Yeah.
so you need to be at the conference in order to
To
do
be
that.
a delegate, yeah.
But aren't you like a board member?
Well, that was my next thing, is
Okay.
that I'm actually on the MSA board,
Yeah.
Okay.
MSBA board, and can serve as this board's delegate to the Delegate Assembly.
Perfect.
So if you're all
Do you
comfortable
mind?
with that, of course I don't mind.
Okay.
I just didn't want to presume.
That sounds
Okay,
good.
so again, if you're interested in attending either or both days, I think we have to go through Elaine to get ourselves registered.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we were waiting for the email from them because they said
Yeah.
it more information to come. I haven't received
Yeah,
that.
no, I don't
I
think.
haven't
I know
either.
they have not provided
No.
the
Oh,
description
okay.
of like what the breakout sessions are at this point in
Right,
time. They're just
yeah.
giving us the dates, and typically it's the second day is the breakout sessions. The first day, I believe, is a business, more of a business meeting.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, because we were talking about potentially carpooling
Yep, for sure.
and doing the one day.
Which would
So
be
is there
that
some-
would be the
Fri-
28th then?
Friday.
Usually,
I think it's Friday.
Friday,
Yeah, so Wednesday,
okay.
Thursday this year was weird.
Okay.
27, 28.
27.
So registration is or is not open yet?
I don't think it is.
No,
Okay.
it isn't, but I could see.
When you are interested, if you are interested, let Elaine know.
Okay.
We've-
I haven't gotten anything yet.
Okay.
from
No.
them, But feel free if you want me to, ahead of time, you can let me know too.
Okay.
As soon as we get
Okay.
anything more, we'll forward it
Forward it,
right along.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Third thing on my agenda is this topics for future board meetings that we've been talking about for the past couple of meetings. Got some excellent feedback from you folks via email on potential topics, and I believe you've seen
Yep,
that
yep.
list, right? Actually, I think some of that we'll probably address tonight.
Yeah, what I'd like to do, if it's okay with all of you, is kind of take some time to kind of go through and consolidate, like, how do I take those ideas and put them into a presentation format?
Yep.
And then some of them are, I think we want to include that we maybe didn't mention, but I think I said to Linda that this year we are going to make sure we have a presentation on adult education. She was scheduled to do that in the spring of 2020, and the pandemic hit, and so I want to make sure we add that to the list of things that are upcoming.
For sure.
And obviously, there'll be things that'll come up along the way as well. But just to kind of give us, we'll create that schedule, just so you can start to see where the board workshops are and those types of things, so people know what's happening.
Very good.
Great.
Okay. That concludes my report and brings us to the report of the superintendent.
Well, school's back in session. I don't know if you know that or not. We are back and rolling, and so what I wanted to do is kind of holding with the tradition, although it feels a little bit different this year, because typically our first board meeting is the first day of school. It's kind of, we've been in school now this is day 4, but I just wanted to do a quick little check-in with each one of the buildings, just to kind of hear how the opening of school went, and then after that, we'll share kind of the enrollment data of where we are currently. Who would like to go first? Dr. Harrison?
The first day of school, it was amazing. Awesome. It really was. It was so exciting to be present after 2.5 years of mask wearing and seeing families. Hundreds of people came into Elliott Elementary School. If you happened to be there that evening, it was amazing. People were smiling and talking and greeting people that they, parents of their kids' friends that they hadn't seen in a long time. And it was really just a good feeling. It was a really great vibe. When kids are, so that was sneak peek. That was the night before the first day. So first day of school, kids came in. Before they came in, it was raining out. Our teachers went out and chalked the walk despite the rain. It was great. There were all kinds of beautiful expressions that the teachers wrote to welcome the kids. So that was a great way to start. The kids arrived on the buses and got out of their cars and came into the school. It was wonderful. There were older siblings taking their little siblings to their classes, walking hand in hand, only at an elementary school. It was just so precious. Kids were stopping to say hello to last year's classroom teachers, and then they were a little bit nervous about going into their new classrooms, seeing old friends and some new friends. It was just great. Highlight of the day, of course, always at an elementary school is recess. Kids were having a ball out there. We had 2 new recess monitors. We were breaking them in that day, and the kids did a good job doing that. So that was super. That first day, it's really devoted to setting the tone that we do in a responsive school, and we consider ourselves a responsive school at Elliott Elementary. The routines, the expectations, how one talks to a peer or an adult, or that whole interaction. So we place a lot of emphasis on that. And that's what happened on that first day. But laughing and giggling and just getting reacquainted. It was a really great scene. So thanks for the opportunity to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. De'Aaron?
Very similar. It was a wonderful, wonderful start of the school year, and just so nice to be back to normal and just start right out with our sneak peek and having our PTO to have freeze pops outside and having all the, just feels like it never, just how we always are supposed to be. So really smooth. Of course, we haven't had our pre-K and K join us tomorrow, so tomorrow's the whole early release pre-K, K all back together. So we're gearing up for that, but it's been so nice to see the sneak peek. Is just adorable. You get to meet all 3 pre-Kers at a time, so that's my favorite thing to go. And they're so quiet in the beginning, but they won't be tomorrow. And then the kindergarten doing the 1-hour screening, that's just been a really big gift over the past few years, because they get to spend an hour with the families and just give them their own really private sneak peek, and the kids are just so excited. So I guess our thank you to our PTO. We have a new basketball hoop outside, and they've just been so supportive. And again, we had our first PTO meeting last night, and looking forward to just normal, they just movie nights, back to different things that we haven't done in a long time. So they're really excited just to support us, and we're
already getting ready for the Monster Mile. It's already underway, so that this year it gets to be on the 31st, which has always been the goal to have it after trick-or-treating when they have all the sugar, so super excited about that. We've already really noticed all the changes with the interventionist and the IEP coordinator and how helpful that's been, so just so grateful for those new positions because it's already been, you can feel the difference already having the support already, so thankful for that. And just a big thank for, we have great new staff. Welcome back Mo Duran, and welcome back Meg Zolly Green after 2 years. So just having them return, and just we've had some staffing shortages the past few days, and everyone was so amazing and just stepped up. So I can't ask for a better place to work. So just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brunel?
So, similar, we had our sneak peek that Monday, and it was just, we broke it down, so fourth grade parents came from like 4:30 to 5:30, then fifth grade parents 5:30 to 6:30. But it was just so wonderful to have everybody in the building, and you could just feel that, sense of excitement for everyone. So then, first day comes, great day. You've heard me say for years, the only 3 things that are important: get them there, feed them, get them home. All right, and that's what we did. Heather was right there on that Wednesday checking on buses. They actually changed some buses even during the day to give some extra runs. I tested positive the next day, and so all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, second day of school, how are they gonna run without me? I call Leah up, and halfway through the day she goes, you're not here? Because it just runs just perfect without me. It's just, we have the band demonstration today. We've got our intramural starting next week. I'll talk on one of my others about a workshop, something we're doing with a high school student and our school, and just how teachers step up to the plate. So it is just really excited. And I would say the other thing about when you talked about recess, we're doing something different this year because our band kids have always had to choose. If they do band, they have to choose band or recess. And so this year, we're continuing to have 2 different lunches. So it's
That's so awesome.
so it's quiet in the cafeteria, but we're doing 1 recess. And so 150 kids go out there, and we're able to staff that. But that way, kids don't have to pick that pick band. So
That's
big.
wonderful.
That's so big, yeah.
So we're really, it's 4 or 5 days, whatever it is, but it just seems like we've been in, for a while. So I was glad to get back today.
That's great. Thank
That's
you.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Creech?
Good evening. As always, thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit about what's happening at the middle school. Same sentiment, absolutely fabulous start to the school year. Spent a lot of time gathering feedback from parents, from students, from staff members about the start of the year, and unless they're snowing me, because it's my 2nd year, they told me this is the best start they've had in a long time. And I think we know the reason for that. Number one, we've got a great staff. They do a tremendous job of embracing our students, similar to what the other principals said when they came in. And it's just like Peter was saying, it's so great to see students show up the first day smiling, happy to see their teachers. Even the students who are 6th graders, that the only time they've been up was one step-up day, and when they met with us last year when we came down, they remembered us. They were excited to be there. They didn't seem nervous, so just a great start to the school year, and really thankful for my staff and how they embrace our students. So we had, our 2 workshop days were fabulous. Staff was well prepared and felt great, felt organized, similar to what the other schools did. We had our first open house for grade 6 the first night on the 29th. Informal open concept. People drop in and spend time with the teachers when they want. It was a great atmosphere. We had NJHS students escort families around the building, and it was just a great vibe to the first night. We're doing something similar tomorrow. Tomorrow's our grade 7 and 8 open house, 6 to 7:30, same format. We've also started athletics and extracurricular activities this week, so it's an exciting time too. It'll help me at the end of the day when we won't have 922 pickups, but only about 50 in the back of the school, so that helps. But I do want to highlight 2 things that I think are really important for the start of the school year, and hopefully have an opportunity to share this with you later on. We've got 2 programs that we're highlighting in our schedule this year that I think are going to be critical for our children. We're starting an advisory program. So the advisory program will be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and have 4 components. We're going to have academic counseling, where teachers are going to get their agenda books out and have them prepared for the week and get them set up to get support. We're going to have a social emotional learning day that's led by our school counselors. We're going to have team grade level day, because they're always asking for time to do special things, and now we won't have to take it out of class time. We'll have designated time during advisory. And then we're going to have school-based activities. And so, for instance, in October, our Fridays will be spent preparing for the Veterans Day celebration. So each Friday, our advisories, instead of taking it out of class time, they're going to be doing whatever they're doing at that grade level to prepare for the Veterans Day celebration, which, as you know, is huge in this community, and we're excited to bring that back. The second program is we have academic enrichment and support time. So you're familiar probably with what they had in the past. This is a different version. Academic enrichment and support time, it's 30 minutes every single day, except Thursdays. They can go from enrichment activities, they can go and practice the guitar, or finish that art project, or go get academic support, or make up something if they've been out. But every single teacher is off at the exact same time. And the academic counseling that happens in advisory, it's the same teacher that has them during A East. So there's a coordination of their efforts. So these are 2 programs that our staff felt were critical to help our children develop the whole child and support them, especially coming out of the pandemic. And I just wanted to highlight those for you tonight.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
very exciting
So
to hear.
exciting.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Zoom trip.
I wish I could have gone first, because they stole everything I just said. It's been a fantastic start to the school year. And I've got a little frog in my throat, but I'll tell you, I tested negative, so I'm trying to stay away from Julie. But, no, it's really been a great start. Kids came in, of course, that first day. We had set up 4 class meetings, and I just couldn't get over how respectful kids were in those environments. And we were able to talk to them about a couple of the changes and a couple of the goals for this year around civility and respect to each other. And like I said, they were great. We also had conversations with them about some of the supports that we have in place for them this year, this room being one of them, our Success Center this year, to help kids stay focused and caught up with their work. So I couldn't say more about the teachers. You see a little pep in their step, and that's always great to see. And I think in alignment with the other schools, I think people are glad to be back in a more normal setting this year and not have to have restrictions or the things that we've gone through the last couple of years. So I think that's added to the whole district-wide environment in schools, that people are glad to be back and be back to somewhat normal. So just a couple points I wanted to bring out. You're going to get to vote on a life skills special ed teacher today. We're putting forth a candidate that I think is going to do some amazing work and try to get our kids out into the community a little bit more. So I'm excited about that. We have a resignation with a guidance counselor who's taken a job in Scarborough. And so we met with guidance yesterday. We talked about what that guidance should and could look like moving forward. And we've come to the conclusion that we're looking to have more of a college and career guidance counselor who would help students with that process in getting kids enrolled into schools and helping them with that transition. So we're shifting that look a little bit in guidance. But overall, it's been great. We've ordered some new benches for the front for kids to have a place to sit sometimes when they're waiting for a ride. And one of our students, I talked him into planting some mums to get just a little bit of community service. So I don't know if you saw them coming in, but there's some purple and white mums coming up the walkway. But just like everyone said, it's been a great start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Fantastic.
exciting.
Awesome. I I would be remiss if I didn't mention the work that Heather Webster has done. Obviously drivers have been a premium, and so we are down in that department, and then just the wizardry that Heather's been able to put together and keep this all afloat right now, just remarkable. So just Heather, I just want to make sure that we publicly thank you for all your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
She'll never come again now that I mentioned her. That's just Ryan was going to go through our first day of school enrollment and just kind of summarize that for us.
So I apologize. I did have slideshows for both the presentations that I'm doing tonight, but due to technical difficulties, my computer's being used to stream the meeting, so I can't do both. Just wanted to echo something John just said. We got new bus radios this year, and Mr. Bourbon volunteered me at the central office to have a radio in my office. And this is the first year I've actually been able to listen to the radio traffic.
Oh.
On Wednesday afternoon, when I keep hearing call after call, we don't know where this student is, where's this student? And just the camaraderie, the teamwork that you hear on that, it was unbelievable to hear. And you know, I'm obviously learning to drive a bus, and I can't even imagine trying to drive a bus, and then where's this kid, where's that kid? And just everyone was calm, and it was, you know, they figured it out. So to echo Jerry, getting them home, they got them all home. It took a little bit, but they got them all home. So again, kudos to Heather.
Yes.
And the drivers as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So the first thing I have is this colored graph packet, which is the first day of school enrollment data. And we break it down on the first page by school, kind of giving you 5 years of data for each school. Starting with LA Elementary, we're up 5 students from where we were the first day of school last year. Central, we're up 1 student from where we were last year. Great Works, we're up 8 students. Marshwood Middle School, we're down 12 students, and Marshwood High School, we're down 14. If I did my math right, that nets to we're down about 12 students from where we were last year at this time. Rollinsford enrollment, we're down at the middle school, 9 students, but we're up at the high school, 15 students, so that's a +6 for the Rollinsford enrollment. On the next page, is our enrollments broken down by individual grade levels. So you can kind of see, you can go down the list and see pre-K all the way down through 12, and you can look at where we were last year at this time and where we are today, or where we were on Wednesday of last week. So again, these are first day of school enrollment data. I'm going to kind of reiterate this in a minute, but this data does tend to change and shift. People are really good at calling and registering students, but they're not so good at letting us know that, oh, we've moved, and so there will be some changes to this as we go forward. So if you look at the next page, this is last year. So this is our last year's first day of school enrollment and our last year certified enrollment that we send into the state on October 1st. So that's kind of after we've had a chance to kind of parse through the data and take those students out. I apologize, I'm not sure. Those first grade numbers were in there. It should be 126 for it should be the blue line, and there should be a green line in there for 125. I'm not sure why that didn't print, but if you look across grade levels, we usually lose, I usually say between 20 and 40 students from the first day of school to like when we get to October 1. So using that metric, if you look at the next page, we kind of have our enrollment totals going back from 2014 to where we are now. We currently are at 2,145 students. We projected when we did enrollment totals and did budgets that we were going to have 2,108 students. If we take the 38 students out that we lost last year, we're kind of like right on where our projection would be. So we may lose a few more, we may use a few less, but that's kind of, I think we're where when we targeted enrollment, we did a pretty good job.
So remember, just keep in mind that the variable that we weren't sure about was the homeschool piece as people returned from the pandemic. And so
Right.
that was one of the variables as we kind of built our budget last year we took into account. Any questions about enrollments?
So we would have the update to this next, in October's first
We
weekend.
absolutely could, yeah.
19th, we would have, we
Curious.
would have the official.
October 1 enrollment, we don't certify that until like November.
Oh, okay.
It takes about a month for us to make sure we have those totals and everybody's accounted for.
Cool.
Because it's not just us. So when students move away, other schools are going to register them, and then the state's going to move them in their system as well, and that's kind of what we're certifying. So it does take some time, but yeah, it would probably be like in mid-November we'd have that.
So how does the email that we got just trying to prove residency for our children, how does that play into this piece? Like, is that just this being checked, or, because it just seems like new. Do you find that it's like a new?
What are you talking
I
about?
was gonna say, what
Yeah,
email? I'm not
wasn't it
sure.
about
What, if you
email?
moved
Yeah.
into the,
Oh.
or moved? Oh, I
It's
thought you
part
had
of
to
the-
update.
It's part of the paperwork that you update, and so it's like one form that you fill out, so if you're new to the, or if you've moved, they want you to
If you
update your
move
address.
within the district.
I think
Yeah.
there's a
That-
box
right.
you check that said, I have not moved, and then you don't have to even fill out the
Yeah.
address point.
Oh, I missed that part.
But there is,
Yeah,
I missed
there
that part.
is an issue
Oh,
that we
you
run
did too,
into, particularly with the Rollinsford billing, is that we have people who come back to school at Marshwood, but they may have moved from Elliott to Rollinsford, but they don't let us know that, and so all of a sudden, we just think they still live in Elliott, and they're like, no, we live in Rollinsford, and then we can't bill, we haven't billed for that, and so we've gotta make sure we bill for it, or,
Right.
if they're, mailings, those types of things, if someone moved, within the district, we wanna make sure we know where they are, so.
Yep.
Yep.
Got it.
I didn't know what you're talking about for a second.
I didn't either. I'm
Well,
like,
I
what?
missed the check box.
Yeah,
Thank you
right at
for
the
having this
Yeah.
conversation,
Yes.
and I'm sure there are others out there that.
Probably.
You check the check box. You're all set.
Perfect, thank you. The next thing on the agenda, I have this, childhood experience of I'm just a Bill on Saturday morning cartoons and trying to explain how a bill was made, and just trying to be very clear and simple about the process. And so, one of the things I think that creates a lot of confusion in the district is that we say there's gonna be a 2.4% increase to our budget. So what that means is we're asking the communities for 2.4% more money than they gave us the year before. So I'm gonna make up a number right now. And so, if that's $450,000, let's say, we then take that into the towns, and what happens with that? It's not clean math where 225,000 go here, 225,000 goes here, and we kind of go that way. There's a whole process that has to go through, and I think sometimes there's a lot of confusion around that, because people say why does Elliott have a larger increase or a smaller increase or than South Berwick? It's the same school district. So Ryan is going to give us a real brief presentation on just once that amount has come up with, how do the towns determine how that's impacted, and kind of a little bit of the history as to how that happened. So.
And can I just clarify just real quick that 2.4% is the max? We don't always do that, do we?
No, what
It's
we,
not always
what
an
the,
increase
but
of
for the last 7 or 8 years, what we have said is that we really want to try to keep our increases below 2.5%. And
Oh,
that
right.
kind of goes back in time to, there was a point in time where we were at 50% receiver. And Dr. Nash, the thought process is that we would get an increase from the state, and we'd ask for 2.5% increase from the local communities. Our receivership has changed drastically, and so we used to be 50%, now we're more like a 36%, 35%, depending on the year, receiver. And so I've tried to hold true to that 2.5% every year. Just knowing that there may come a time when we can't do that, but we need to try to be as consistent as we can. So that's where that number came from.
So just to be clear, and I'm going to say this loud because I couldn't hear you last meeting on here because that needs to be
Nope.
closer to you. I'm just going to translate for my own understanding and also for the community's understanding. So the receivership for us as a school district from the state dropped significantly. How many years ago do you think it was?
I'm not sure.
I feel like it was before my time.
There was a point in time where there was a lot of losses.
Yeah.
Governor Mills put more money into education
Yeah.
Through the pandemic, and so there was an increase
A
in that.
little bit there, yeah.
And so I think what people get tied up in is there's a lot of moving factors that impact someone's tax bill. And I think
Right.
that's what we're trying to, just be clear about, and just make sure people understand that there's a long history. And I met with a gentleman from Elliott last week, and just trying to explain kind of that process and kind of the history around what had happened with that. So,
Right. Yeah, I guess my point to clarify is that there was a significant loss of income from the state, and yet the district held kind of its bargain to stick to
2.5%,
our
yeah.
agreement of
Yes.
not going above a 2.5% increase. I
Yeah.
think it's really important for our towns and community to understand that.
Yep.
That we did not just move forward to charge the difference to our towns.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, perfect. Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa, just to touch on what you just said, that big decrease in funding did come, I believe it was 6 or 7 years ago, that the state used to fund teacher retirement, 100%. We
Right.
didn't put any contribution in towards retirement, and that kind of changed 6 or 7 years ago, and now there's a district match that goes along with that. And I want to say it's an order of magnitude, probably between $700,000 and $800,000 that get passed on directly just through that one change.
Right.
There's obviously been other changes to the formula. They change the formula every year, but that was one
was a
pretty
big one.
significant
I remember
change.
that
That was
Yeah.
kind of like when that number really started to kind of move.
I forgot what that was specifically, thank you.
Yep. So, this is the other packet. It says assessment breakdown on it. Again, I'm sorry, I have slides, but, like I said, my computer's in use. So if we move, to the first slide, just kind of going through, why aren't the school tax assessments equal between Elliott and Southborough? So, there's a lot of factors that go into this. I'm gonna try to keep it as simple, and simplified as I can. So just the first thing to understand is, Maine's funding formula. So there's the EPS funding formula. And that is 100% created by the state. In that formula, there's a number of variables, teacher ratios, adjustments based on poverty levels, adjustments based on where your community lies in the state. We do get an adjustment as being in the southern part of the state, where we get more money for certain things, where folks that live in the central or northern part of the state might get a little bit less. So there's all kinds of different variables that affect the state funding formula. So again, I'm just gonna focus on one, which is the state mill rate. So for the 22-23 school year, the school year we're currently in, the mill rate expectation for local taxes is set at 7.1 per thousand. So the state takes the average of the 3-year valuation. So what they're doing with a 3-year valuation is they're trying to smooth any large changes. So if there's any large swings in a valuation, by using a 3-year average for the valuation, they're kind of smoothing that out so that you're not gonna see big swings if the valuations change. So if you take Elliott's 3-year valuation, it's $1,031,533,333. You multiply that out by 7.1 and then divide by 1,000. Elliott's required local share of taxes for education is $7,323,887. Again, do the same math for South Berwick. Take their 3-year average state valuation of $755,533,333, multiply it by the 7.1, divide by 1,000, and South Berwick share is $5,364,287. Now, the state, per the formula, puts in $12,314,000, basically $700. So the total that the state is calculating using the formula and the state's contribution is $25 million, roughly. On the next slide, we take the total district budget, which is $34,306,152. We take out the required local assessment, which is on the previous slide. That's the 2 town required contributions, which is $12,688,173. We take out the state subsidy allocation, which is $12,314,700. We take out other local non-tax revenues. What is that? Biggest part of it is Rollinsford tuition. If we're charging for any transportation revenues over the summer, those types of things. So basically, the total district budget, less what we're required to get from the towns, what the state's putting in, and any local dollars. There's still an amount left that we need to raise, and that's the tax amount there, and it's called the additional local contribution. Now, why did I explain all that? Well, typically, on most municipalities or municipal school districts, the way that the additional local contribution is figured is the same way we do the required local contribution. So they would just take that and they would run it through based on the town's valuation. Back in November of 2006, the district held a referendum vote. And in that vote, they voted to change how the district was gonna allocate that additional local contribution. So instead of being 100% based on the property values of the towns, it's now split 50% based on the property values and 50% based on the student enrollment. So the results of that vote, I put that on the page. It was a very close vote. So the only way we could change it back or to change it to something else would be if we held another referendum vote. I believe last time there was a committee that was assembled. It was 3 members from each town. They kind of came up with the language, kind of went through the process, decided to put the question on the ballot, and those were the results.
So to kind of break that down a little bit, so before that vote, people from Elliott would say, wait a second, we're paying considerably more even though we send less students
Right.
to the school. And that was
Right.
kind of the formula that was used for the
It's like a
longest
little
time.
bit
And so
unfair,
this was a way to be able to try to value both of those things, the property
Mhm.
values, but also how many kids you send to the
Right.
district, so.
So on this very last page, I just kind of show how that additional local contribution gets calculated. So if we looked at the additional local contribution and we just wanted to say, what if we just did it by property values? So you'd see that the contribution from Elliott would be 3.8 million, and the contribution from South Berwick would be 2.8 million. And if you did it 100% based on enrollment, it would basically flip the other way. It would be 2.8 million from Elliott and 3.8 million from South Berwick. The way we really do it is we do it 50% based on both, so it ends up being roughly $3.3 million from Elliott and $3.3 million from South Berwick. So those contributions change. I believe 2 years ago, it was exactly split 50-50. Like
Equal.
literally 50-50, but it changes every year based on what the property values are, what the mill rates are,
Yeah.
and what the student enrollment is, so.
And the mill rate is a variable that changes every year, that the state changes. We don't have any control over that. So the state could, one year say was as high as 8%, was one of the numbers you showed me, Ryan?
It was well over 8.
Well
yeah.
over 8%, or $8, and, you know, this past year was $7.10. And so just to understand kind of the levers that kind of go into it, but I think sometimes there's confusion around, you know, that $450,000, let's say, how does that break out and how does it impact the different towns differently? So I just wanted to be able to take some time before we get into budget season just to share kind of the history and how that all really works.
I don't know if this is useful, but for the rest of the board, that additional local contribution is the number that we vote on as a separate warrant article at the budget referendum, or the budget meeting, where we have to cast a ballot
That's
rather
right.
than,
Yes.
that's that additional
Yeah.
contribution.
And just
Okay.
one more note on the required local, that is, they call it the required local because in order to receive your full state subsidy allocation, you are required to raise that, at least that amount in taxes. So if you don't raise that amount in taxes, they do cut your subsidy funding. So just one last note on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
Questions?
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Yeah.
so
Very
much.
helpful.
That is super helpful. Is there a way to, or would it be appropriate to, just especially since we don't have video showing these slides, is there a way to put this up somewhere with the budget information
We
and
could do
all
it
of
under
that?
frequently asked questions about the budget, right? Would that
Yeah,
be, that
this
would
would
be?
be perfect for that,
that'd be
yeah,
very
just to
useful.
explain.
Yeah, just to explain
Good
the
idea.
process.
What about like the town meetings or having copies of this at the town meetings or what have you? Or perhaps go over the, I don't know, at maybe one of our next town meetings where we meet with the representatives and maybe
think it would
share
be
share
helpful.
this,
Yep.
so that everyone's on the same page.
Yep.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
including,
Absolutely.
because there's a lot of, just like there is on the school board all the time, there's new town councilors and new town manager. I mean, not that they don't know, but maybe not. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been on the
Sure.
board for 4 years and I just learned something,
Yep.
so who knows?
Well, it's one thing to hear.
It's
that there-
complicated.
You know, and look, you know, I live in South Berwick, right? Like, you know, I get my tax bill. I mean, I'm not immune to understand that, like, if we said it was a 2% increase, and why did my taxes go up far more than 2%? Like, there's other factors that go into that other than just the school. Obviously, the school drives a considerable cost for the towns. Like, there's no
No
dancing
question.
around that.
Mhm.
But that's not, there's other factors that go into that, you know, and so, you know, I just think being able to be clear, just, you know, here are the variables, so as we make these decisions, when we talk about what's the impact on Elliott, what's the impact on South Berwick, this is the information that we're pulling to be able to have those conversations, so.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I just wanted to share, number 4, I had a wonderful meeting with Vicki Stewart today. And we have a plan that every 3 weeks or so, there's going to be a kind of a feel-good story from the district. And different than like the thrill share snapshot, hey, this is great news, like if it would be more kind of like, let's write a story to report kind of something that's happening. And so what's going to happen is that Vicki is going to attend all of our administrative team meetings. At the end of that, we're going to say, what are some good news that we have to share from each building? And then after we get that, Vicki can kind of get those things. Let's make sure we're getting those smaller messages of it. Then Vicki's going to say, look, this might be the thing I'm going to choose to write an article about, to be able to expand on the website.
great.
The idea obviously is to be kind of across all schools. I was very clear, I don't want this to be an athletics extracurricular activity thing. I want this to be an educational, like, what are some different things that are happening? And when I say athletics, I don't want it to be like, hey, the team won a big game. Like, if there's other stuff, like, I think about, like, the tennis piece that came out, like, that's a great story, right? But it has very little to do with athletics. It's more of an experience for kids, even though it might fall under the scope of tennis, but it's not about, the football team won a big game. Like, that's not what we want to talk about. I mean, that's great, don't get me wrong, but I think, like, we do a lot of that already.
covered
Let's
that.
talk about some other things.
Yeah.
So,
Love it.
so we met today. I think we've got a great plan going forward. And so, we'll begin to see that content start to generate in the next 3 weeks or so. So,
Will that be right on the homepage?
right on the homepage.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
So good.
Thank you
good.
so
And,
much.
try to.
That's
We can
awesome.
kind of replace some of the other stuff that's not quite as fun. So,
It's all important, but.
the next thing is just talking to the board real quickly about setting up a meeting with Rollinsford. I throw out the date. I talked to Lori today, and does the 19th of October work at 5:45 as kind of a workshop day? And she's going to try to coordinate with her board as well. But I think there's some things that we need to talk about that are very timely.
Oh, that's our next,
That's a regular
that's our
meeting.
next meeting, yeah.
No, October, not
Oh, sorry.
September, October.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh,
But it's
Yeah,
before a
that's-
regular meeting.
It's
October.
before a
That's
regular meeting.
before a regular meeting.
Yep,
Yeah.
before a regular meeting.
October, yeah. 5:45, you said.
Proposing 5:45?
Is that, is
5:45.
that a done deal, or?
No, I just
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
get the feedback from all of you, get the feedback from them as well. I
Okay.
think, it's always out there about the 6th grade at Marshwood Middle School, and they have not told me that that's not what they want to do, but it has always been kind of a conversation. But if
Yeah.
we're gonna do that, let's have that conversation now. The conversation on transportation has come up in the past. I think there's an opportunity to talk about, pre-kindergarten. And, there's some things that we could talk about a little bit and be able to brainstorm and be able to get some feedback on. But I'd like to do that sooner rather than later as they their budget process starts with them the next month. So it's
Right.
just be important to have those conversations now if you could.
Yeah, that'd
So.
be great, 100%.
Yeah.
Great.
We have an F&F meeting that night as well, so I think we do, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll squeeze that in before our regular meeting,
Yeah.
after
Yeah,
this
yeah,
workshop.
I think we
Good,
could probably
okay.
get done in
45 minutes?
45 minutes,
Yeah,
than we did
okay.
last time.
Good.
And we'll have a pretty set agenda. I think it's just, that there's just a lot of brainstorming. I also just want to be able to check in about the LEA position that they are sharing with us, the IP coordinator. I just think that's gone really well so far, and I just want to make sure we're continuing to communicate about that. And in fairness to Rollinsford, their communication for them to students is really tricky. And so, for instance, tomorrow, I had to have an email sent out from the middle school and the high school, specifically just to Rollinsford families, just because it applies to them, it doesn't apply to everybody. And so, that's just one of those mechanisms that's a little bit clunky right now. We're trying to be supportive as we can, but it's just important to communicate. So.
Right.
Great. I bring the next question to you, and I bring it with a heavy heart, but I just wanted to get the board's feedback around, would we like to continue the COVID dashboard? I have asked that it be kind of moved from the banner across our page, but the reality is that, we're starting, COVID is still impacting us in schools. Nina shared that she had a number of staff members out. A number of buildings are struggling with that on a regular basis. I think it's important to be transparent, but I also don't want it to be the be-all and end-all as it had to be over the last few years. Please, I'm not trying to minimize it, but I think we have to have a balanced approach as to how we go forward
Yeah.
with it. So I just wanted to put that out to the board to get all of your thoughts.
So the question, I think, is do we want to remove the COVID dashboard from the front page?
So I've removed it already from the front page.
Okay, so that's been done.
That's done. What really the question is that we paid a stipend. I believe it's a 4-point stipend, and I may be off by a point or two, and basically a stipend is $195.
Yep.
And so that person would every day go in and update the COVID numbers.
Okay.
And so that would be, they manage it, they would be able to show that so parents could go on to look at it. So really the question is, do we want to continue to do that?
Yeah. Are the numbers being used for anything?
For us right now, not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now. And so, and I'm gonna give you my opinion, I guess that's part of what you pay me for, is to give you my opinion. It's one of those things right now that no one wants it until they want it. And then when they want it, if we don't have it, then people feel like we're not being transparent. And so
Yeah.
in my mind, I don't know what the future's gonna bring. Worst case scenario, we're gonna invest a small amount of money to be able to track the data so that parents are concerned, they can go on and say, look, here's the number of new cases, just to be able to better inform our community to provide that transparency. That's where my head goes. I don't, The other side of it is if we don't do it and all of a sudden we're behind it, then I feel like that's a tough place to get caught up from,
Yeah.
so.
It's not a lot of money either.
No, and it's more so, look, I'd love to be able to say, we don't need to do it, you know, and frankly, it's what I said, you know, I don't wanna, you know, the state's not making us track anymore, so where did the COVID dashboard come from? The state had a mandate for us that we need to be able to communicate with families what was going on with COVID in our schools. That mandate's not there right now. You know, so now the kind of that next threshold of if things get sticky, they say you wanna be able to make sure you're transparent with your communities and updating them periodically where things are. So maybe this is the vehicle that we're able to do that with, you know, if we have to get into those more sticky situations, so.
Is it something that can be taken down and then put back up if we feel it would be useful down the road?
Absolutely could. The problem is that it's like one of those things, if you don't stay on top of the data, like we do it every day, and so, if we're collecting it, you know, it's probably easier just to put it in now, rather than, you know, if we wait 4 months and we get behind, then it becomes a little bit different task, so.
Are we collecting the information though, potentially, and not putting it up? Would we still have the information?
Right now, we're collecting it, not putting it up. So
Yeah.
right now, we, like, so
Oh,
for instance,
so
you,
we're still collecting. Yeah.
we saw the, you know, the email that went out from the nurses just saying, you know, if you have COVID,
Okay.
please, you know, there is
Yeah.
still the 6 to 10 day piece that's in effect.
Sure.
But we're not necessarily doing anything with that data right now, but, you know, do we wanna be transparent to let people know this is what's happening in our schools? You know, I shouldn't say, I'm gonna say that differently. This is what's happening in our community. I'm not gonna say what's happening in our school. I'm gonna say this is what's happening in our community.
Yep.
So and the CDC is still tracking it for the state of Maine.
They are tracking it for the state of Maine, but like some of the things, like, you know, I went on the website today and some of the stuff is so outdated. Like they said, like if you're in the moderate risk range that you need to do pre-screening testing. Well, they discontinued that
Right,
back
right,
in
right.
June, so
Right.
like that's not an option, so let's
Right.
take that off, you know.
Right.
You know, what are the vaccination rates? You know, we haven't tracked the student vaccination rates, neither has the state for a while now. Like, and so like some of the information is just not as relevant as it once was. So, just looking for some guidance from all of you.
I can see the value in continuing to have the data. The nurses on the board can speak after I
Yeah,
say,
I was
make
gonna
this
say.
point, but I've heard talk that the potential for a surge in the winter may not in fact materialize because of the level of immunity that's being experienced now. Jury's case notwithstanding.
Yeah, I
Do
don't,
the nurses have
I'm
an
not
opinion
sure
on it?
that it's a super useful tool from a family perspective or from a community perspective. I just assume not have it up there.
I would agree. I feel like if we're gathering data, then it's because we're going to potentially use the data in some way. From a nursing perspective, I also think we're past the point now where that's gonna, any sort of percentage is gonna change anything. I think this is what's gonna happen in the country, in the community. It's not necessarily a school-based thing at this point.
It's not.
I don't think it's, I think what we see happening here will be reflected across
Hospitals.
the area. Right.
Ventilator usage, admissions to the floor.
But again, if people feel strongly about it, it's not something I'm like, but I don't feel it's necessary
To even collect the data.
to even collect
Yeah,
the data.
okay.
I'm
And the-
with the nurses.
But I mean, that's not, I'm not a public health nurse, I
No,
don't
I
know, but if
just-
we're not doing
As a
anything.
parent and a nurse, I just feel like you guys are like, and like you said, if we're not using any data, then why collect it?
Right,
If and when it makes sense to collect it again, maybe we collect it again, but
right.
And what are you doing with the data that
That's
you
exactly
see?
it.
So are you gonna
Right.
make a different choice?
Right.
No,
I don't,
so the lever right now, from the state of Maine's perspective, is that 15% attendance rate. And that's basically the
15.
threshold that's
So
always
then
been in
that's the
place.
data that we should
Right,
pay attention
you know, and that's the threshold that's always been in place around, even when there was the flu. If you
Flu,
have,
right.
if you're at 15% over a couple of days, then that's when you need to do something, basically.
Right.
It's kind of been, and that has nothing to do with COVID, that's just kind of been the standard piece, so.
and we collect that already. We don't need
Oh, yeah,
the
we look at
COVID dashboard for that.
No,
Yeah.
Right.
we don't. I mean, we need the individual COVID information, because if kids come back, we want to make sure that we're following the safety
Protocol,
protocols.
right.
But that's not about showing there was 30 new cases over the last 4 days. Like, that's
Yeah.
not what the point of it is.
Right.
you
Okay.
know? So I am gonna summarize that right now, the desire that we're gonna leave things as they are, we'll leave the data up as it is old, and if we need to revisit it later, we will, but right now, we're gonna leave it as it is. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
And so I just want to be clear to the community, that doesn't mean that we're not looking at this on a regular basis. You know, it's, that 15% is an important number for us. You know, from a school standpoint, you know, there is still juggling that takes place when you have 10 staff members that are out. And that's not close contacts, we're not contact tracing, we're not doing any of that stuff anymore. That's just people who are ill. There is some shuffling that's taking place to be able to make those things work and whole. So, but that's still what happened, whether we have a COVID dashboard up or not. It's really
Right.
about the COVID dashboard, so.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're gonna hide the COVID dashboard, you're not gonna just leave it up like that?
No, I'm gonna leave that with last year's data. Like, here it is.
Yeah.
Here's kind of what.
And I
here's-
don't think it's an effort to hide.
Well, I mean,
right.
a website,
Right.
right, that's what I mean.
Right. I just think if we're moving our buildings are open, everything's open, we're starting to function as if we're not under COVID guidelines anymore, it doesn't serve us to keep a tally of the numbers
Well put.
on the website, so.
And if we have to revisit it.
Then we can revisit it.
You know, so, perfect. Great, thank you very much. I wanted to share a meeting that I had 2 days ago with our student representatives. And so, really, we've talked about this a little bit. And part of what the idea was is that I would really like to have a more targeted student report. And the student voice is so, so important. And I think sometimes we get in the habit of you know, like highlighting the extracurricular kind of things and kind of the, let's kind of get off on a tangent and we'll talk about, you know, kind of a play or an athletic event. And I think we really want to be a little more targeted of what we're doing and give a more concise breadth of depth of the student experience. And so what we talked about was over the course of a month, and we're not starting this tonight, so don't but just give you a chance to process a little bit, but there's 4 kind of categories, and so each one of the representatives will share one of those categories on the given night, and then over the course of a month, they'll have an opportunity 4 times to share that. And so one of the things we talked about was student government, like what's happening in student government. Let's hear what's happening at Marshwood High School. Let's have the principal meeting with student government to find out where we're at. Because one of the things that as we got feedback, particularly around the interviewing for the principalship, is there were some feelings that student government would bring things to the administration and it would just die. And so we want to get, I don't know, die is a bad word, but just nothing would happen, be unresolved. And it's really important to be able to, if we're asking for student voice, once we get it, let's honor that. Now, the answer might be that we can't do something, and that's okay, but let's be clear, and this is why, and let's make it a teachable moment, as opposed to just letting it sit out there. And so this is an opportunity to say, hey, look, here's a big initiative, you know, let's talk about this, and, you know, here's what students are feeling right now. And this is the process that kids can have to be able to share what their view of Marshwood High School, because ultimately, if we want the culture that we want, student buy-in is the most important thing that we can have. Students have to create an environment that they want to be in, and that's a big part of it for us with the student government. The other thing is that there's monthly themes that are going to happen through the advisory program, and so reporting on what that theme is. You know, it might be homecoming, you know, for 1 month. It might be, civility. It could be a number of different things, but sharing out whatever that was being talked about as kind of that advisory piece, the advisory committee work. Next, and it's kind of, this is all kind of a jumble, but civility, safe school, positive learning environment. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what's your student experience like? Like, if this is important, right, if we're going to say that civility is important, how we treat each other is important, how we talk to each other is important, then we need to talk about that. And let's find out how things are going. How do we work on that? Because we can't address the problem if we don't know the problem. And so giving student voice an opportunity to say, hey, look, this is what's going really well. This is what this is what student government is telling us about this. This is what this club is saying about this. Boy, Interact has had this experience. This has been really difficult. So really trying to gather that voice. And then I do think the extracurricular part is super important. But let's just have that be one of the 4 reports as opposed to, you know, more than half the time. So that's kind of what we talked about yesterday, and just I know we had kind of discussed it a little bit amongst the board over the summertime, but I did want to follow up on that. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does.
Great.
Yep.
Folks, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think you covered that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Annabelle, because I feel like she really has made such an effort too on a lot of this already. I
Unbelievable.
feel like this is just formalizing it.
Yep.
Do you feel like that?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I think just getting, and I think what we're doing is we're creating habits for the future, right? Like, and so I think this, you know, if we get away from what's important, then all of a sudden we've lost what's important, right? And so then to be able to say, look, this is something that's important to us, this is the purpose of having the student board representatives, is to be able to share that student experience as you as a board make decisions.
Yes.
So.
And guide us in making decisions. Yeah.
I did want to share that Mr. Brunel has some wonderful news he wants to share with everybody this evening. So, Mr. Brunel, I turn it over to you.
I usually don't bring papers up, I usually wing it, but I actually made some notes on this one. So, if you know Wendy Shaw and Sarah Alice, so last spring, all of a sudden they came into the office. So I knew we were in trouble because they are go-getters. And they said, Jerry, I really think there's this grant out there, or there's this award out there that I think we ought to put in for. And so I asked what it was, and so it was a federal, it's an award. The federal government gave the Department of Education thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to, and they call it the REV grant, so I want to make sure I have the right words for it. It's Rethinking Responsive Educational Ventures. And so what they're saying is, we want you to think outside the box. And the grant is, or the award is $100,000.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so $100,000. Not $900,000, it's $100,000 on the dot. So I said, yeah, okay, that sounds great. So what we did is, the three of us, last May, we ended up every Wednesday, we had to take a course in this. And it was strange, it was different, but we were meeting with these people all over the state that were trying to write this grant. And so we went through May, and Wendy and Sarah wrote this, and it was really around a couple of things. For us, it was outdoor education, but the grant could be alternative ed, it could be stewardship of our environment. I mean, there were a bunch of different things you could do, but we really looked at the outdoor ed and in stewardship. So, and our focus was, we really looked at student engagement or student disengagement. We looked at the social well-being of our kids, and also being eco-literate. So, so they wrote, and they wrote, and they wrote. They would send it into the state. Yeah, pretty good, but not, didn't get it, they had to do this all through the summer. Well, the other day we found out we got it. So we got However, okay, and we have to spend this in a year, unless the federal government actually pushes it out a little bit. We're not sure. So we have $100,000 to spend, and we have to do it within a year. And it is to be innovative. And it's to start things. Well, for me, we start things, but if we do good things, I'm going to be coming back to the board to say, we got to be able to continue those things. I mean,
Right.
it's, I think of the Pinkham Notch and things like that. So some of the things we're going to do, and we just got the okay to start spending the money now, is like, we're going to bring the Brown Center in from UNH and to work with our entire fourth graders a number of times, and they're going to be working on, team building. How do you get along? How do you deal with when you don't get along? So it's things like that. How are you a good citizen? And so I was talking with the Brown Center the other day, and so they're going to be coming in quite often, working at, and we haven't got the schedule yet, but working quite often with our fourth graders. And then at the end, we will be taking our fourth graders over to the low ropes course. That will be, and the fourth grade's always been looking for, what is our Pinkham Notch sort of thing? And so there's money there. We have $10,000 that we put in for transportation. So if a teacher or a group of teachers say, okay, we want to go to the beach, and we want to be able to study crabs or whatever the things are. So we have money in there for that. This is where my notes come into play. We're looking at, even on our playground, designing a ropes course, a low ropes course for our playground that all kids have. We're looking at, and so some of the stuff is stuff. So for instance, we're able to look at, to be able to increase the connectivity of the Wi-Fi for the building. Because we purchased computers with this, and we're able to go out, and so when you're looking for invasive species, so you can actually take the computer out, you can, take pictures, and you can find out then and there, are these invasive or not. But we need to be able to have the Wi-Fi out around the grounds, it only goes so far. We're looking at putting like a tent, we've got outdoor classrooms, so we're looking at putting like a tent on at least one of the outdoor classrooms. So it doesn't matter what the weather is, we can take those kiddos out. We're looking at our Kool-Aid Club, which is kiddos that may need a little extra. We're looking at having them go to the ecology school in Saco. So they would get a kind of a double. They'd get to go to Pinkham Notch, but they'd also get to go to the ecology school. So it just, we're looking at looking at the campus different in that we want to be able to have raised beds. We want to be able to have like a mini orchard. We want to be able to have blueberry bushes where kids are actually raising that. We've looked at gutters and rain barrels. So we would be, I mean, those are simple things, but what a message you can, for these kiddos. You think of the drought that we've been having, and it would be, we have these rain barrels. Why do we have those? So just a ton of different things. We're looking at just teachers, we want them to go outside to teach. They need supplies, so we can buy a shed and be able to put those supplies out there so teachers aren't lugging things. I think 67% of the money has to go directly to kids, okay? And then 33% can go to other things. We're way over the 67 towards kids. We've got some money in for PD. There's money in there for teachers if they want to, if 3 teachers want to work together to design a outdoor, take a unit that's teaching in science, social studies, doesn't matter. Teachers want to stay after school, they can get paid a little bit through this grant to do that. So it is just, it's pretty, it's really exciting. We work with the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. We take our 5th graders up there. Well, we've got some programs where we're going to be gathering data for them. And so our kids are going to be going out, and Wendy and Sarah, they went and got trained this summer to do this. And so they're able to go out and take our kids and gather data for the Gulf of Maine. So it's just, we're really excited. We kept saying, we were so discouraged when we got we got online with the people and they were saying, what a great job we did, but you knew that butt was coming, because when you write these grants, it's got to be precise. And Wendy and Sarah over the course of the summer kept coming back and rewriting, writing, and of course we got it. So I just wanted to share an email that they sent to us, and Wendy and Sarah are going to kill me. But it was, and this is from the DOE, and so we're so proud of the work that you and your team have done to craft such a strong pilot template that not only tells your story, but does in such an organized, impactful way. Elaine and I, and those are the 2 people that run it, are very serious when we want to share your pilot template with other schools looking for the exemplar model. And so, I think that, they're go-getters, Wendy and Sarah. Having said that, we had a meeting on our first workshop day, and we said, Sarah and Wendy can write this. However, the staff has got to be for this, okay? It's not just them. And so we have this outdoor committee, I would say 20 teachers came to this. Okay, now that we got the money, how are we going to spend it? And so it really is exciting. I'm actually hoping that we get to be able to not have to spend it all right now, just because we want to make sure you spend it wisely. But we've got the budget. We know exactly what we want, and as I say, it's to the board is that this is to start some things. And so in our budget, I just think of the Brown Center. That's a big expense. Okay, that's something that probably the PTO can't always purchase all of that. So I'm just putting a plug in that it works well. You're going to see me again because I just it shouldn't be a one and done. If this is good, for kids this year, it should be good for kids next year, the year after that.
How will you know if it's good? Is there data collection?
We have to do surveys, all sorts of things to be able to gather the information. So,
awesome.
and we looked at all attendance records. You know, what was our attendance record in, you know, before pandemic? What was it during pandemic? You know, our view is our attendance is gonna be better. Kids are gonna want to come to school, you know, more with these things, so.
Fun.
So that's,
Yeah.
and Ryan's been great, he's had to meet with the state with us, and, you know, we're all nervous about what form to fill out, and Ryan's like, just spend the money, I'll take care of everything else.
Aw,
So I don't know if you have any questions.
I love this so much. I love every part of it. And when you were talking about the kids going outside and identifying native versus exotic, it made me think about the GLOBE program at UNH. Are you
What
aware of
is it?
the GLOBE program? It's a group of scientists who facilitate students as citizen scientists. So you go about and actually map different areas. They give you like an acre or 2 or 10 or however big it is, and you map different species. And it kind of falls right into that hands-on,
Exactly.
science-based,
That's
and
right.
they collect information from year to year, so it's something that you can build upon.
And that's exactly what that GMRI is doing.
Yeah.
Is they're saying there's 2 or 3 different species
Right.
that they're studying right now. And so our kids are gonna be, you know, in southern Maine, our kids are gonna be the ones that are gonna be able to gather that data for them.
Sounds
But
like
again-
it's the terrestrial version.
What's that?
Sounds like it's the terrestrial version, yeah.
And it's the
Versus
idea of
maritime.
transportation though.
Yeah.
You know, it would be, the district doesn't have to pay for that.
Yeah.
And I've already been in touch with Heather and said, keep those bus drivers happy because, you know, we're gonna be
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No,
Congratulations.
that's
That's
wonderful.
so exciting.
Yeah.
Way to go,
Congratulations.
Sarah.
Wendy, just,
Yes,
you know.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you to
That's
them.
amazing.
Right?
Kudos.
That's
much
awesome.
work.
For sure.
Yep.
Incredible.
Next, I just wanted to share, you know, the sad news that Amy LaBelle, who's our current department head for the school counselors, has resigning. She has found a job in Scarborough, I believe. And so, you know, she's been with us for 16 years and just, you know, obviously a great wealth of institutional knowledge. Does a very nice job organizing the vocational programs you know, at SRTC. So, you know, we'll be posting that position. We have posted that position, pardon me, posted yesterday. So just want to let everybody know. And that concludes my report with the exception of our students.
I'm gonna have Rowan go first for the big beginning.
Yeah, so we've exited preseason and we've gone into the real deal games. Our football team lost Friday night to South Portland. Boys and girls varsity both won against Thornton Academy. Boys won 3-0 and girls won 2-1. Girls varsity played soccer at home tonight along with JV as well. Both of them won 6-1. Girls field hockey played tonight, and volleyball won last night against Noble as well. Also, on to student government, the exec board met today after school, and we've decided that we wanted to target the topic of this month of school culture, school community, school spirit. We are meeting again on Tuesday in the mornings, the exec board, and we're hoping to dive more into that to get started as soon as possible.
All right. This is very high tonight. So I'm gonna do some extracurriculars that very few have started, but that's all right. We have plenty of time. GSA has met and begun planning a course of action for the year, ranging from discussing a possible Pride Month dance in June to reviewing transgender sports policies, which very much affects most of the GSA. CRT begins meeting next Tuesday. A group of leadership students in CRT did meet today. I was unable to go.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
That is our civil rights teams.
Yes,
Will be meeting.
sorry.
Speaking meeting next week.
Yes, civil rights team. There was a leadership group today. I was unable to go due to personal stuff. And no one responded to my text asking what they talked about, but that's okay. I'll let you guys know next time. September 12th will be the audition day for Shrek, the district musical. Seniors have received several forms in the past week gauging their opinions for events/stuff that hold meeting to MHS. For example, this year's yearbook will cosmetically and some content-wise be dictated by the senior class. I'm the editor-in-chief again this year, so I decided that we should I want the theme to be our year, so I want the majority opinion choosing what they want to see in the book this year. And today we received a form asking about Spirit Week, which will happen September 19th to the 23rd. And lastly, I just did this. I wanted to try gauging, like, hitting content-wise. In general, school morale and spirit has been high since the first day. Students are getting to interact with full classes, and for some, this is the first time they've done so since 6th grade, especially the freshmen, so it's a big change. Like last year, I think the most kids in my class was like 15, and now my highest class number is 24. There's a plethora of new staff, too, that we're all getting to know, and in general, the atmosphere is just very bright compared to the past couple of years.
Thank you.
That is all.
Yes. Very cool. That's that.
That is that.
Thank
and
you
that
both.
concludes my report.
Very good. We've not received any correspondence upon which to report, so we'll move right into the report of the committees. FNF will next meet in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about that at our next meeting. Ed Policy is scheduled to meet at the end of this month, and so we'll hear from them after that. Wellness SEL met earlier this evening. Who's going to report out on that?
Can I just, before you do that, just the policy committee, one of the policies that we're going to be bringing forward
Yes.
when we meet the next time is around a Maine diploma. And so Brett's going to join us, and we're going to have that discussion, but there's a diploma offered through the state of Maine for students that, due to COVID, may be credits behind.
Okay.
And it would be the Maine state graduation requirements. It would not meet the Marshall graduation requirements, but it might be an option for 3 or 4 of our learners who might be struggling, and this might be a great way to be able to help with their engagement and finish their high school career, kind of meeting that standard. So that will be part of that conversation. So, sorry.
Very good.
but I just
No,
wanted
it's
to make sure that
quite
was-
all right. Thank you. It's good.
Can I just, so the facilities and finance, September 15th, maybe you mean the 14th? Because it's not going to be on a Thursday, right?
No, it's not.
22nd.
Okay, maybe I'm looking at the
No,
wrong
you're not.
agenda.
Should be September 22nd.
No.
No,
21st.
21st.
2 weeks from today.
21st, yeah.
Right. I should have caught that. Thank you. September 21st. Good catch, thank you. Okay, Wellness SEL? Who wishes to
Jen,
report out?
wanna take
Do you
it?
want to take it? or-
Ellie?
Okay.
It's a lot. We talked about a lot.
Yes, we
I'll
did
fill in
talk
the
about
blanks,
a
how
lot.
about?
Okay, thank you. So Wellness Committee had our first meeting tonight. And to start, Heidi presented the Komochis program to the Wellness Committee that she presented to us at our last meeting. And that was well received, and it sort of opened up a more general conversation about sort of what programs are used for sharing feelings and restorative practices sort of district-wide. So while the Komochis program is, I think, K through 5, what are we doing at the middle school and high school levels? So that was sort of a nice discussion. And Heidi also said that the ARP funds they got a grant that will be used to buy more of those Komochi sets, so that did she say each school counselor will, or pre-K?
Pre-K
So
classrooms.
Yes,
all the
so
pre-K
right now,
classrooms.
the school counselors, the social workers, and the special ed room
Some
all
of our
has
life
a
skills,
set.
yeah.
And so now all the pre-K
Special ed, yeah.
classrooms will be getting a set as well, which is great. And then we just talked about some goals for the committee for the year. And to start, we talked about the possibility and likelihood of a sort of district presentation for mental health and wellness, sort of at some different grade levels, and what we want that to look like. So that is in the works, and that was sort of like an exciting, it felt like we got some momentum going on that, so that feels exciting. And the Choose to Be Healthy Coalition is going to be meeting soon. That's now our district and 2 others, and they have a meeting, did you say next week?
I believe it's next Thursday.
Okay. And that's, what else? What I miss?
Man, one other
Yes.
thing, the Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, which is a survey that we took students took last spring, that data is being released, and so we're having a meeting, I believe it's either next Tuesday or next Thursday, where we'll talk about kind of unrolling that data. And then what I would like to do, again, one of those board presentations that we didn't necessarily talk about, but we had Sally come in before and present the data and kind of go through what it means and what does it tell us about trends, national trends, and our student at-risk behaviors. And so I just would like to put that out for the board as well.
Great, looking forward to that.
Yep. So.
I think we also talked about food service, Jerry brought that up. Just keeping our eye on that.
Yep.
Continuing that conversation, and Dr. Dearn we were really hoping to come out of this meeting. It looks like probably the next meeting with 3 main goals for the year, focused on students, for sure parents, but also staff, and
Yep.
really prioritizing staff wellness as well, and what that might look like. And actually, there was a share about this new Hawk's Nest staff committee happening at the middle school, just taking care of, someone is ill or something like that, like Care Basket, like just putting that kind of things together. I guess Tammy Schuff is heading that up, which sounds just like her. But just more things like that to prioritize staff well-being, I think is a really great goal. I'm personally really excited about that one as well.
So what do you mean by the watching of the food? Is it the food service Chartwells that you're concerned about?
Not necessarily concerned,
think
but
it's a
just that
concern.
we have a new contract with them, and so we had talked about some things that we'd like to see. We have the new Oakhurst milk, just, sort of
Tracking
Tracking,
changes,
yeah.
the updates
And
and the
highlighting.
improvements.
The improvements.
Yeah.
So I have some frustrations around Chartwells.
Okay.
There it is.
I'm gonna be honest, when we did those tours last year, it was wonderful to see what other schools were doing. And my exact quote was, there is absolutely no reason on earth that we're not the model school.
Right.
And so that is what we need to demand. And so
Okay.
tomorrow, we're having a meeting with Chartwells, with the executive director, the regional director, and Karen, to say, we need to make this happen, this needs to be a priority.
Yep.
And so that was the conversation, and that's what's gonna happen, and that's what our kids deserve. That's what, when we signed on, we said, these are the things that are gonna happen, and this is how we're gonna partner, and if we need to do things to have conversations that I need to bring to the board, then let's have that conversation, and let's not. One of the things that got in the way with Chartwells is that they were making decisions that weren't necessarily theirs to make, and so in our benefit, they were trying the financial side of it, and I think we did very well financially, so we were able to, where we were 3 years ago or 5 years ago, we were very much upside down financially. Chartwells did a really nice job of bringing us back, but I think there was something compromised, that if that was brought forward to the board might have said, time out, for an extra X, this is important to us, and let's find a way to do this.
Yep.
So, we're gonna have those conversations tomorrow, and then we've also, this is gonna an established meeting time for quarterly meetings that will happen with the executive director, and I also wanna be able to kind of bring back that food service group to be able to create, at least twice a year, we're meeting with Chartwells,
Yep.
that group, so.
And there's a new director, Karen Fink is the
Yep.
new director, so she's sort of came on as the director as we were
Yep.
picking or signing another
And a new
contract
regional
with them.
director.
Yeah.
There's kind of a new person, the gentleman that we were working with, I think took another step up, so there's a person we're meeting tomorrow for the first time, and
So hoping combined with a little more scrutiny and all those things, that
Okay,
it will
great.
be a better
That's great.
experience. than it
Great.
was.
And you
Yeah.
think there's gonna be more creativity with the food options
That-
like we
that-
So that was the
thought
point.
was going to happen?
that was what we were told, and that's
Yeah.
what will happen.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much for advocating for our kids.
The other part is that it is a balance, I guess is the best way to say it, because you have the Chartwells Corporation who has their employees, so we have 2 Chartwells employees who basically, one's our kitchen manager, one oversees the food service department, and then we have our Marshwood employees. And one of the things that we want to avoid is having those Marshwood employees getting caught in between 2 worlds. So the messaging has got to be, the same, and it's got to be uniform, but at the same time, we've got to do it in a way that builds a positive culture and climate. We want to take care of people who work hard for us, and we want to make sure that they're supported and have the resources that they need to be successful. And so that's also part of the conversation tomorrow as well.
Great.
Wonderful.
Okay. That, I think, concludes the report of the committees.
Yes.
We have one item of new business. May I have a motion, please, to nominate Megan Murtha?
I will move to consider an action to nominate Megan Murtha, first-year probationary special education teacher at Marshwood High School. Start date to be determined, prorated to start date MA 16. Master's level 16, 77,394, school year 2022 to 2023.
I'll second. Go ahead, Lisa.
I'll second.
John?
So it was delightful to talk to Megan. Obviously we lose a special education teacher literally the day before school starts, and that's always a tricky thing. And to have someone the quality of Megan show up at our doorstep is really exciting. Has some great experience working at the Stratford Learning Center right now, and so really has some great experience with special education students. And the part that I really liked was the program coordination that she did with the Make It Happen Coalition for Resistant Youth. And then also kind of the career skills teacher that she did for a period of time. So for our life skills students, an opportunity to be out in the community, to be able to make those connections for those lifelong opportunities that they would have. And so it just really seems like a nice alignment of things. Megan graduated from St. Anselm's College and also the University of New Hampshire with her master's degree. She is going to have to give her notice where she is currently, and so that's why things would be prorated. Obviously, we'd like to have her as soon as we could, but at the same time, we want to be fair to her current employer to give them an opportunity to find somebody else. So I'm really excited. Feel good about it.
Questions or comments? All in favor? That is 6-0. Thank you. That concludes our new business. I think because we had each administrator give us a nice update on start of school, that we're going to skip over the building administrator check-ins tonight.
Yes.
Thank you for coming and for your updates. That was much appreciated. I will entertain a motion, please, to enter us into executive session.
I'll move to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing evaluation of officials, appointees, and employees. 1 MRSA 4056A.
I'll second.
Thank you. Lisa? All in favor? That is 6-0. We are in executive session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Grab my laptop.
Good to see you too.